Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to start with relative frequency. What is relative frequency? It is actually how often is something happening divided by the total number of possible outcomes. Okay, I'm going to explain it to you with an example. Always you have to remember this point that sum of all the relative frequencies is always 1. Okay, starting with this question. Okay, it says row 1 throws a rice 200 times. The bar chart shows the results. Use bar chart to complete the table of results. Okay, they've given you the frequency of the first three. We have to we have to read it from the graph here. With 4 it's a 35, with 5 it's a 22, and with 6 it's a 38. So we've completed the frequency table now. Using row 1's result, find the relative frequency that he threw a number less than 3. For instance, if I make a minor change in the question and if I say he threw a 3, what is the frequency of 3? It's 28 divided by the total number of possible outcomes, which is 200. So relative frequency is how often is this happening. That means when you throw a dice, how often is 3 coming out of 200 throws. Okay, so the answer is going to be this. But in this particular part, since they have said it's less than 3, so less than 3 is this and this. That means the total of these two, that is 46 plus 31, which is a 77, divided by the total. You can't simplify it further, so you just have to give this as the answer. How often is a number less than 3 coming out of the total number of throws, which is 200. So less than 3 is 46 plus 31. Okay, so the total frequency of these two divided by the sum of all the frequencies. Rowan says that the dice he has thrown is not a fair dice. Make two comments to explain why the dice may not be fair. If it is a fair die, okay, then the probability of each one of this number coming should be closer to 1 upon 6. Okay, so you can notice that the smallest here is 22. So 22 upon 600, it's very less as compared to 1 upon 6. 1 upon 6 in decimals is 0.166. Okay, 1 upon 6 is 0.1667. Okay, and 22 upon 600 is 0.036. Okay, you can say 22 upon 6 is less compared to 1 upon 6, and the maximum here we can see is 46. So 46 upon 600, which is equals to 0.076. okay, that is also 2 less. Sorry, the total frequency is 200. Okay, so let me just correct this. 22 upon 200 and 46 upon 200. 22 upon 200 is around 0.11, and this one is 46 upon 200, which is 0.23. So this is more. Okay, so you can write 46 upon 200 is much more than 1 upon 6. So because the frequencies are not even closer to 0.16, it's very high and the other one is very low. So that's why we can say, if you are throwing it 200 times, every single number will not come exactly the same. Okay, but that means it won't be that if it is 200 divided by 6 outcomes, so it will be always going to be 200 divided by 6. If you do, we are getting a 33. They are not exactly 33 because it's a game of chance, but they should be closer to it. There's a vast difference in the numbers. Okay, that's why we can say that the die is not fair. Okay, coming on to the next one. A dice is thrown 400 times. Find the relative frequency of throwing the number 2. The frequency of 2 is 80 divided by the total number of times it was thrown, Okay, simplify. 0 and 0 is cancelled. 1 upon 5 is the answer. So the relative frequency is 1 upon 5. Imran throws the dice 1000 times. How many times would you expect the number 2 to be thrown? Okay, number 2, if you notice, the frequency of 2 is relative frequency is 1 upon 5 multiplied by the total number of times it was thrown. Okay, so the formula here is going to be relative frequency multiplied by the number of times the experiment was repeated. Okay, so 1 upon 5 times 1000 is 200. So that means the expectation is that out of 1000 times, 200 times you will get a 1. Sorry, you will get a 2. Okay, lamps are made in a factory. A random sample of 50 of the lamps is tested and 4 of them are found to be faulty. Okay, a total of 4000 lamps is made in one day. Calculate the number of these 400 lamps you would expect to be faulty. First of all, we'll find out the relative frequency of being faulty. So relative frequency is 4 out of 50. Okay, now number of times out of these 4000, so 4 upon 50 divided by 4000 multiplied by 4000. Simplified, 5 1 times, 580 times, 320. So it will be 320. We've done the same method. First we found out the relative frequency of being faulty, which was 4 out of 50 was faulty. Multiplied by the number of times the number of lamps out of which you have to tell how many will be faulty. So 4 upon 50 multiplied by 4000, and that will give you the number of lamps out of these 4000 lamps which will be faulty. Okay. A five-sided spinner is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ashraf spun the spinner 200 times. The results are shown in the table. So the sum of all these is 200. Calculate the relative frequency that the spinner lands on 3. So the frequency is 50 divided by 200. So 50 upon 200, it's going to be 1 upon 4. Marian spins the spinner 20 times. How many would you expect the spinner to land on 3? So whatever is the relative frequency of 3 multiplied by 20. So relative frequency is 1 upon 4 multiplied by 20 is going to give you a 5. So it will be 5 times. Ashraf claims my results show that the spinner is fair. Is he correct? If it is fair, then the probability of each one of these should be 1 upon 5, because see, if you have these 5 numbers written on the spinner, and if it's a fair spinner, the probability of each one of them should be a 1 upon 5, which is 0.2. Okay, or closer to 0.2 obviously. But if you notice here, it's 30 upon 200. This is 25 upon 200. This is 50 upon 200. This 55 upon 200. This is 40 upon 200. So there's a vast difference in the fractions. So if you notice, this is a 1 upon 5, but this one is more than 1 upon 5. This one is even more. This is 25 upon 200, which is a 1 upon 8, which is 0.125, and this one is also quite different. So the probabilities are not close. So you will say no, because the probability, you can write the answer in terms of probability as well as in terms of relative frequency. So you can write the probability of each number on the spinner is quite different from each other, or you can say that the relative frequency of each is very different. So whatever you want to write, you can write down. Okay, and some are quite smaller than 0.2 and the rest are quite bigger than 1 upon 5 or 0.2. The table shows the result when a dice is thrown 300 times. The relative frequency of throwing a 4 is 0.2. Okay, find the value of P and the value of Q. Okay, we know the formula to find out the relative frequency is the frequency divided by the total number of times it was thrown. So P divided by 300 is the method. p divided by 300, and the answer for relative frequency is a 0.2. So we have applied the formula of relative frequency, that means individual frequency divided by the total frequency equals to the answer which they have given. Cross multiply and you will get p equals to 60. Now once we get p equals to 60, we know the sum of all the relative frequencies should be equals to 1. Okay, so we're going to simply either you use that method, but the simpler, because it's just a 2-mark question, we can't waste so much time on this. So we know that this was thrown 300 times, so the sum of all these should be 300. So you have to add them up and subtract it from 300, and in that case you will have to, for q you will have to do 300 minus 55 plus 42 plus 45 plus 60 plus 50 plus 50. Okay, and this will turn out to be a 48. How many times would you expect to throw a 2 when this dice is thrown 1000 times? Okay, what is the probability of 2? Frequency of 2, 42. So get the relative frequency, which is 42 upon 200, 300 sorry, multiplied by 1000. We got the relative frequency multiplied by 1000, you will get the number of times a 2 will come. So relative frequency of 2 multiplied by 1000. Let's simplify this. 2 zeros cancels out with 2 zeros. You're left with 3 in the denominator. 42 upon 3 into 10. So 3 1 times, 3 14 times, 140 is the answer. Okay, a 5-sided spinner is numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The table shows the result from spinning the spinner 200 times. That means if you spin the spinner 200 times, 51 times a 1 has come, 19 times 2 has come. A pie chart is drawn to show the result. Calculate the angle of the sector representing the number 4. So number 4 is going to be, the frequency is 35. 35 upon the total frequency, which is 200, multiplied by 360 is going to give you the angle of the pie chart. Angle of the pie chart, you always, from the table you get the individual thing, individual number divided by the total of all, multiplied by 360. Okay, use the result to estimate the probability that the spinner lands on 3. Okay, for 3 the frequency is 28 divided by the total frequency, which is a 200. This will be the answer. In the simplified form, you can simplify and write 7 upon 50. Use the result to estimate the probability that the spinner lands on a number that is a factor of 30. Now if you notice, out of these numbers, the factors of 30 are 2, 3 and 5. So you have to take their frequencies 19, 28 and 67. Add them up, divided by the total number of times it was thrown, which is 200. Okay, and simplify. 19 plus 28 plus 67 is a 114. 114 divided by 200. When you simplify, you get 57 upon 100. That is the answer. Okay, the spinner spun 3000 times. Estimate the number of times it lands on an even number. Firstly, we'll have to get the relative frequency of an even number. Okay, for even number, if you notice, out of these, the even numbers are 2, 4. So you have to take 19 and 35 divided by the total frequency, which is 200, multiplied by 3000 and simplified. Okay, 19 plus 35 is 54 upon 200 multiplied by 3000. $810 is the answer. That means out of 3000 times, 810 times you will get an even number. 100 adults were asked the color of the car. The results are shown in the table. Write down the relative frequency that one of these cars is blue. Okay, so you will have to take the number for blue divided by the total number of people who were asked. So 23 people said that the car color is blue out of 100 people. So 23 upon 100, which is a 0.23. A different group of 1200 adults were asked the color of their car. The relative frequency of these adults owning a white car is 0.3. So the answer is 0.3. Relative frequency, number of adults who own a white car, we don't know how many, out of 1200. Cross multiply and solve, you get 360 as the final answer. Okay, that means out of Out of 1200 adults, 360 are owning a white card. Which formula are we using? We're using individual frequency divided by sum of all the frequency is the relative frequency. Okay. In a survey, some students were asked about their favorite type of music. Okay. So they could choose classical, folk, reggae or rock. The following relative frequencies were calculated from the results. 300 students took part in the survey. Find the number of students who choose reggae. Okay, first of all, in order to get to this, we know that sum of all the relative frequencies is 1. So for reggae, relative frequency of 1 minus the rest of them, 0.15 plus 0.22 plus 0.39. Okay, 1 minus, I'm adding them up, 0.15 plus 0.22 plus 0.39. It is 0.76. So 1 minus answer is 0.24. Okay, so 0.24 multiplied by 300. 0.24 that means 72 students said that they like this music out of 300 people. Okay, we've already done this question. Fine. Okay, thanks a lot for watching this.